very important time for us, as we'll announce the campaign in October. We're still struggling a bit with the theme, and so Heather has people, we have people, I would say, who are trying to think through that with us to try to convey sort of the idea that the campaign will permit us to create Rose Bowl moments for people across the university. So we're going to think about it that way, Rose Bowl moments for people across the university. And the first part of that is simply getting talent. And that was true, if you think about John Hanna's comment about it's about people, it's about talent. And we are in a market where we're competing with the best in the world for talent. And that's an extraordinarily great position to be in. And I wish John Hanna would have raised a bit more money along the way. Because the idea of just sort of doing it with more and more enrollment is not exactly a great sustainable strategy, what we're doing. So it is about scholarships, it is about endowed positions. And whether I like it or not, or you like it or not, the world has changed in the value that people see in an endowed title. They believe fundamentally that it makes a difference in grants. And right now, with the cutback on federal programs in a variety of areas, we had a faculty member who was in the top 6% in the grant competition who was not funded. Was not funded in an area of NIH. And that just happened last week. The cutoff scores in general for NIH are now 20% and rising across the entire level of divisions, with some in genomics a bit different than other areas, but it's a problem. And you're going to see that in NSF and DOD and lots of other areas. So things like the University Research Organization that we've established that lets us do sensitive research and potentially participate in more DOD funding is going to be really critical to our future, but those titles people believe do make a difference. And whether I like it or not, it is the belief structure. It is a belief structure. And it's about that kind of talent. So if you think about the Big Ten minus Michigan and Northwestern, because I consider Michigan a private in this regard, the $7 billion endowment.
Yeah.
The average in the Big Ten is about 400 positions, and we have 100. We have 100. Now, the MSU Foundation, we're going to trade out some money and have them treat part of our annual grant as a mini endowment and move that up by 50. But that still leaves us 150 compared to 400 at the average, with everybody else raising money. And so it really is critical that we think about this in the long run, because it will be about getting the right people at Michigan State. And the second thing about people is really the scholarship component. We are, everyone is being bashed about affordability. Our numbers in some ways are good, in that half of our students leave with educational debt, only half. That's a number that people do not perceive us to have. But we also know that there's a lot of fragility in our student population, because 75% of our students come from families of $125,000 or less. And it doesn't take many bumps along the way. 70% of them work. So while our debt load of 50% is below the state average of 62, the $25,000 is below the state average. The national average is 72, and we're below the national average of the numbers. It's still a high number. And it still means that students who have the opportunity to be successful here cannot be. Cannot be. And as federal financial aid becomes more rule-bound, it will disadvantage places like us that cannot support students in a variety of ways. Even though we're the model that Obama wants, which is high prestige universities taking lower middle class students. But he hasn't reconciled that with debt and with graduation rates. But he doesn't have to because he's the president of the United States. But that's going to be a challenge. And we are spending $20 million annually less than the average of the Big Ten, again, minus Northwestern and Michigan, annually on endowed scholarships. So it's a challenge. We want to keep that sort of middle-class feel to our student body. I think it's a kind of work ethic that employers are seeking. I think that's why we have 91% of our students last year employed within 6 months or committed to graduate school. That 30% to graduate school, while some people bash it, people come here expecting to go to graduate school. The incoming student data would suggest that medical school or dental school or whatever, because, or a PhD in neuroscience. I mean, it's not without an expectation. Even accounting people now have master's degrees as a part of the process. So that number's good. About 5% are taking a gap year, a new concept. And we do have kids who are doing Teach for America and other things. In the surveys that we've done, it does suggest that, because I talked to a father in St. John's yesterday about Teach for America. Their kid wants to be part of the Resurgence of Detroit. So signed up for Teach for America. So is that a good thing? Is that a student who's misplaced and therefore doesn't get a value for their education? Or is that a student who got the right values in their education and is going to apply it the right way? And those are the things that Michigan State has simply always done. Always. But the competition is tougher, and that's why the campaign is really clear. There'll be some buildings and some other things. The College of Business is one of them. This was a meeting earlier with somebody who's a distinguished endowed chair at the University of Texas. They're unhappy with their business building, so they're going to build a new $175 million business building. And we're going to struggle with a $60 million addition to get new kinds of classrooms. Technology. So that's the league we're playing in. And we need to play in that league to be the place with our values in that league. Not because we want to be just like everybody else. So that's what the spirit we're going to have to try to convey with these Rose Bowl-like moments that across the university. So the question is how to convey that, and Heather's working. So if ideas, tell Heather. And because we're trying to find the short, we can't use making us victors, that's what Michigan's using. But that doesn't really fit us really well either. So, because so we're about teams and other things. So that's the challenge. The environment in the state is, and nationally for higher education, is one in which there's greater regulation and greater scrutiny, all imposing greater cost. At the same time, we're supposed to be more cost effective. And people, again, don't see much of a contradiction to that, but it is part of the environment, and there are things we need to do better. We were just doing a response to Senator McClaskey on the sexual harassment thing. And the model that she used for the police component, we have the exact same wording from 1992. In 2004, we did a task force on sexual harassment and sexual assault that started a whole range of programs. Now, are they sufficient? No. Because this isn't a problem unique to us. You can say, gee whiz, you can fix it. It is a problem that people come with when they come here, and we need to fix it. And there are lots of issues that go around it. So our commitment is simply to monitor best practice and try to incorporate that as rapidly as possible, to listen to the changes in the regulatory environment, and right now the climate is to take a new rule and apply it retroactively. And in that context, you're always going to be wrong. time, we need to learn from our mistakes because we have made some. People of goodwill make mistakes, particularly in difficult circumstances. We will not be perfect. So we have to learn from those mistakes as well. So the commitment is to take the best practice, apply it as rapidly as possible, be a leader in experimentation. SARS was a leader. Recognize that some of the bureaucracy, like giving everybody a climate survey, really doesn't make a whole lot of difference when we're doing a climate survey every 2 years to random selection of people who got 49,000 votes. And you don't get much more data from surveying 49,000 folks and having only 10% respond than you do from doing targeted population-based work, including the residents. But that's the regulation, so we'll do it. But we're not going to hide behind it. We're going to do the other things that we think give us meaningful information. And the question is how to convey that in a politically charged atmosphere. I can tell you that the high-profile cases on that list were investigated. So, and they had different outcomes, but they were investigated at the time. They weren't pushed under the rug because of the profile of individuals. And that'll all come out when all this stuff is ever. On the first case it was 4 years ago, they had been to campus twice to double check our records on that. And we have been sharing with them all of the new stuff we've been doing, and they've been giving us that institution, great job institution. So it's just the nature of some of the things that one does when others around you don't necessarily do the same thing. You know, and again, you can argue any individual case about whether it was rightly or wrongly handled. It was done with good faith, I can tell you that. Straight up, but it's an argument. So those are issues that are all going to be part of us. Research regulations, environmental issues, all those are just things that we have to continue to work on and be as good as we can be on while we try to be the best institution possible. So enrollment's good. This class will have probably 28% out-of-state students in it, and that's without a common application. The next year's class could potentially have more. Lots of attention about students from China. They're a very integral part of our community. Their wealth profile, by definition, has to be more than a $60,000 person from Michigan, because you can't get into the country with that. But we're learning how to make them a fuller part of our community. And they've been an enormous asset economically to the community. There are new businesses popping up that are not only for Chinese needs. And you see that if you go to Grand River. And that's the part that gets lost in what I think of as the phobia. The class, in terms of racial ethnic diversity, will be as strong as is predicted to be as strong as we've ever had. In using some techniques that are legal within Proposal 2, but still some new techniques. This is where financial aid makes a difference. Because under Proposal 2, we can't target financial aid racially. And others can, like Michigan, if they had endowments in place that precede. So there's a tool we just don't have. But we'll work through that. So things are good, research is up, effort's going well. There's $90 million in the FY15 budget. We got 55 this year, 94 million to the state is done. So the project's envelope, because it's going to lengthen in time, is now $720 million of cash from external sources. And another $345 million of things that will be reused from the old cycle. So it's $1 billion plus project. So it's not and it stretched our learning curve a bit. Not just because you have to do it in the DOE way, but it's a big project. And what you have to remember is that only a little above that number is really the building. The rest of it is one-of-a-kind things that people are going to make, many of which have never been done before. So I would urge you at some time when you're here to go wander around over there and just have a sense about, what's happening along the way. So let me pause there. I can do this for a long time. See what questions or comments you all want to discuss.
There was a recent article that I read. Well, first of all, thank you for being here, and thank you for your work you've done at Michigan State. Continue to do that. So there's a recent article that a few of my friends posted on Facebook about Purdue's tuition cuts. An alumni of this university saying, why can't Michigan State do that? And just wondering if you can expand upon
I can't.
rising, and also how you think if that's going to hurt the focus on the middle class education that we have here.
Well, if you look at our tuition, there's a chart that we can share with you that will show you that through all these tuition hikes, actually our numbers have increased, not decreased. You have middle class students. And the debt numbers speak for themselves. So we've done it really with a pretty aggressive financial aid package. The state of Indiana, over the period going into this year, I think has increased their tuition, over the 5-year period, an average of 9.4%. And we are at minus 13% going into this year. And they are a very large, they have a very large increase this year.
Thank you.
Okay, so part of it is state appropriations, it's just pure and simple. The second thing is they're not giving a zero tuition on everything. They, like many, are doing it on their basic tuition. So one of the things that you will see in this year's budget is we will have a rate structure that is different by college. And you're going to see an LS&A-like rate, just like Michigan. And you'll see rates that are identified for all the other colleges in Michigan. And at Purdue, the rate for engineering will go up significantly more than that rate. And they will do it by a fee added on to engineering. And they're about 35% engineers. Okay? Which is how they can do the announcement that they're making, do the fee, and add 100 people in engineering. The other fact is another chart that we could send you that is from the state fiscal agencies that was now off their state website, that would show you that if you look at the combination of tuition and state appropriation, we're about $65 more than inflation over that period of time, but the flip has been with state and university. The issue, I think, for us is I'm not sure we can stand pat on in-state numbers. Right now, we're integrated 22% because we take 1,500 transfers. This class, being year 30, will push it up. But there's a 25-30% decline in the number of Michigan high school students. A recent poll that BLM just did would suggest that 72% of the people in the state believe the university should import more students, because everybody is having to count again. And that's partly a condemnation of the public school system in Michigan, which is very needed, and partly the need to grow the population of different kind of talent base. The other thing I would say to you is over this period of time, we've averaged 1% on healthcare over 5 years, and also we've done 30% more STEM student credit hours at university. They're all